We are stepping into, well, what has to be an impossible moment in time. We are stepping into, dive into the raw, completely unfiltered aftermath of, what is arguably the single most disruptive event in Western history. The crucifixion and the alleged resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Right, and you have to forget the sanitized versions, the accounts written decades later.
Exactly. Our sources for this are the detailed, intensely personal, and, well, tragically interrupted diary entries of an observer, a time traveler known only as Jason, or the Greek.
And he's embedded. He is right there with the disciples in Galilee in April of 30 AD.
It's the ultimate espionage mission.
It really is. The project was codenamed Caballo de Troya Trojan Horse, and its whole purpose was to gather this high-definition data on Jesus' absolute closest circle.
We're talking about Mary, Hanzabeo, and Bartolome, who was also known as Nathaniel.
Yep, as they're traversing this incredibly volatile landscape between Migdal, Cana, and Nazareth. The explicit goal was to capture the quote-unquote hidden years of Jesus and the real human drama of his legacy right after the event.
Right, before the story hardens into dogma.
Before the story hardens. And here's the core conflict, the thing that just drives this entire narrative.
It's Jason himself, the explorer. He's a human being, but he's been trained to operate under the absolute strictest set of rules ever devised.
We call it the Code of Caballo de Troya.
And the three most critical rules were, they were simple, but they were devastatingly difficult to actually uphold. 1, observe everything.
2, intervene in nothing. You can't risk altering history.
And 3, and this is the killer, maintain absolute emotional detachment. They called it the heart of ice.
A heart of ice. But as these diary entries show right from page 1, that heart of ice, it just starts to melt almost instantly.
This doesn't stand a chance.
Not at all. We're only talking about a few days of observation here. April 24th to the 26th, 30 AD. But those 48 hours are just packed with, everything. Profound religious tension, visceral anti-Roman political rage.
An actual street brawl between apostles.
A street brawl, a near-fatal snakebite that forces this huge ethical crisis, and then ultimately a catastrophic betrayal and disappearance.
What really stands out to me is just the sheer precision of these sources. We're not dealing with, vague memories recorded years later.
No, this is clock-punching, GPS-level detail. He's churning every single step, every conversation. Jason is recording history in real time.
But that intimacy comes at a terrible price. Stick around, because this dive ends with the explorer physically trapped, his mission completely compromised, and the ultimate historical record lost forever. Okay, let's unpack this opening segment. The action kicks off properly at 7:15 in the morning, Monday, April 24th, 30 AD. They're setting out from near Migdal, right by the Sea of Galilee.
Right, but the physical journey is almost immediately overshadowed by this immense psychological and political pressure. Bartolome is leading the group, heading toward the Wadi of Hammam.
But the group itself is a mess.
A total mess. They're still reeling from the trauma of Jerusalem, of course, but they're also deeply, deeply divided on what to do next.
And the main split, which Jason documents so meticulously, is all this tension being caused by Simon Peter.
Yes. Peter, the rock, the headstrong fisherman.
Yeah.
He'd made this huge unilateral decision.
Without consulting everyone else.
Exactly. Peter had called for a massive public assembly. He wanted it held on Saturday, April 29th, and the whole point was to formally proclaim the resurrection to everybody.
He just wanted to get it out there.
He felt that waiting was basically cowardice. He believed the events demanded immediate, loud public action, and that decision was causing just severe internal strife.
But why was that so controversial? If you believe the Messiah has risen from the dead, shouldn't you be shouting it from the rooftops?
You'd think so. But Juan, that's John, along with figures like Andres and Mateo Levi, they advocated for something they called espera, cautious waiting.
So pump the brakes a little.
Pump the brakes. For them, the resurrection was just too extraordinary, too confusing, and frankly, far too dangerous to just proclaim publicly without direct instruction from the rabbi himself.
Which they hadn't received.
Which they had not received. Proclaiming it meant immediate confrontation with the Sadducees, with Rome. Juan preferred quiet reflection, solitude, not some big political rally. So this foundational disagreement just made the atmosphere thick with distrust and, fear of betrayal.
And as they're walking, we get our first really profound look into Jason's internal struggle. He's the scientific observer, right? The man trained for absolute neutrality.
He's supposed to be a walking video camera. Just record, don't feel, be immune to the human condition.
But that's not what happens.
Not at all. Jason notes that the lingering magnetic influence of Jesus, this sheer force of personality he'd been observing, makes him susceptible to añoranza y sutil melancolia.
A kind of longing and subtle melancholy.
Exactly. He admits that despite all his advanced future tech training, he misses the physical presence of the man they followed. His heart of ice is already cracking under the weight of longing.
It's fascinating. You can perfect the technology of time travel, but you can't perfect the psychology of the person doing the traveling.
Precisely. So they continue their journey, moving through this landscape called the Garden of Guinessar, this incredibly fertile plain near the lake. And that's when all that political tension finds a very physical outlet.
They move into the Wadi of Hammam.
And they're following a clearly marked Roman road. For Bartolome, who is intensely, passionately anti-Roman, he just can't contain his fury. The diary notes this visceral, almost physical hatred he has for the occupation.
So how does that rage, actually manifest itself on the road?
He actually makes the entire group slow down. He stops at every single one of the basalt milestones. These are the official road markers erected by the Romans. And he deliberately inspects them.
And then
he curses them loudly and spits on the stones before they move on. This wasn't just some casual grumbling. It was a profound, defiant act of political rejection.
And if you connect that back to the whole zealot movement, it makes perfect sense. These were men. Disciples of a man who preached peace, but they still carried this deep, almost genetic resentment of being a subjugated people.
Absolutely. The Roman infrastructure, even something as simple as a measuring stone on the side of the road, was a constant, hateful reminder of their servitude.
Jesus' focus was on the spiritual kingdom, but these guys...
They were perpetually grounded in the political reality of the occupation, and that internal conflict really defines their entire movement.
Now, despite all this massive theological tension and deep political rage, sometimes history is just broken up by something completely ridiculous.
Right. And that tension finally snaps when nature itself decides to have a bit of a laugh at Bartolome's expense.
The anecdote of the Calauba rubia.
Yes. They stop for a quick rest, and this small reddish rock bird, the Calauba rubia, swoops down from the heights of the ravine.
And what happens next is it's pure, glorious, lowbrow comedy.
The bird defecates. It evacuates a stream of white excrement directly onto Bartolome's left shoulder, staining his nice wool mantle. The response is immediate and contagious. Juan, Maria, even the explorer himself, they all just burst into loud, innocent laughter. It's this sudden moment of release.
Bartolome must have been absolutely livid. He'd just been steeping in all that anti-Roman rage.
He was, as the diary says, congested with fury. Jason records that Bartolome just let loose a torrent of irreproducible curses. He's condemning every flying and crawling thing on Earth, shaking his fist at the sky.
It's such a perfect glimpse into the deeply human, earthy, and frankly profane side of these men who were supposed to become pillars of the faith.
It is. And the explorer, seeing Maria laugh, he has this realization of how wonderfully normal and resilient they all were, despite everything they were going through.
So, tension relieved, they proceed toward the next geographical hurdle, Arbel. Jason mentions that Arbel Mountain had been considered as a location for the exploration module, the Cuna, or cradle.
It looked perfect on all the maps.
Yeah.
Steep, easily defensible walls, high elevation 181 meters, and an excellent line of sight towards Tiberias. But upon visual inspection, Jason immediately rejects it as a safe site.
Why the immediate rejection? What did he see?
He sees 20 caves scattered high up the steep walls. And from those caves, 20 equally long ropes are hanging down, disappearing into the darkness.
Clear sign of people.
Active human use. And to him, that screamed a den of bandits or Sakari, the knife-wielding assassins. He just could not anchor a multi-million-dollar future tech operation in what was obviously a known bandit nest.
And when the explorer cautiously asks Bartolome about the rogues, he gets this furious, superstitious response.
Instantly. Bartolome gets suspicious and curses the explorer's mother, which was, a common reaction to any mention of bad luck. He's afraid that just talking about the caves, which harbor Atelef bats and criminals, will attract bad luck and unclean beings. This is where we see the depth of their local superstition just overriding any kind of logic.
So he performs an immediate religious ritual right there on the spot.
He does. He quickly ties a tefillin. It's a small, cube-shaped leather box with sacred texts around his head. And he recites what is basically spiritual armor, Psalm 91, verse 5.
You will not feel the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day.
He's literally putting on protective gear against the bad energy Jason inadvertently brought up.
But Maria interrupts this heavy, superstitious moment with something totally unexpected.
A shopping trip.
Seriously.
They stop in the village of Arbel, which was known for its rope and net-making industry. And Maria, despite the gravity of everything, is acting on, well, a pure impulse.
And she buys a finely made linen net, a tulle, for her hair.
It was a remarkable humanizing detail. This is a woman who, just weeks ago, watched her son die a horrific death, and yet she's still deeply concerned with her appearance, with her own resilience. Bartolome is furious about the half-hour delay over something he considers futile.
But Jason sees it differently.
He sees it as proof of Maria's fortissimo temperamento, her incredibly strong temperament. She refused to let tragedy negate her life. The explorer observes that the prevalent Jewish societal view of women as second class was a lamentable servitude that Maria endured, despite her profound importance and inner strength.
After leaving Arbel, they move toward Lavi, and this is where Jason's non-interventionist code is it's absolutely pulverized.
Right, they encounter this massive caravan led by a sheik named Murashu.
And the whole thing has ground to a halt.
Completely. A woman had suffered a really severe fall from a dromedary that had bucked. Sheik Murashu and his men were panicked, just desperate for a healer, a sanador.
And Juan Zebedeo, who is maybe the most well-meaning but also the most reckless of the disciples, he immediately steps into the conversation.
He commits the ultimate breach of security, the ultimate one. Without consulting the explorer at all, Juan immediately introduces Jason to Murashu, not as a merchant, but as a sabio rofe, capaz de grandes prodigios.
A wise healer capable of great wonders.
You could just imagine Jason's horror. Juan's motive was probably simple humanitarian concern, maybe a little bit of vanity, wanting to show that his companions were exceptional people.
But this puts Jason in an impossible position. He's completely trapped. If he refuses, he raises suspicion that he's a spy or an imposter, and he could expose the entire mission.
He has to violate the core tenet of the Caballo de Troya Code: do not intervene. And to make it worse, the cultural context complicated everything.
Oh, so.
Murashu and his people, they had an Assyrian Babylonian background. They believed that all illness and all accidents were divine punishments for sins. So Murashu was begging Jason to intervene to relieve his sins, which he felt had caused the accident.
So refusing medical aid would also be seen as refusing spiritual aid.
Exactly. So Jason, as a trained doctor, he steps in, he successfully diagnoses and treats the accident. It's implied he sets bones or provides some complex relief using techniques far beyond anything available in 30 AD, and he stabilizes the woman.
And Murashu is just profoundly grateful.
He believes Jason has worked a miracle. So as a token of his immense gratitude, he gifts Jason this large jar of petroleo, crude oil, which the locals called aceite piedra, or stone oil.
This was a highly valuable commodity.
Very. It was likely sourced from ancient Mesopotamian deposits used for superior illumination. Murashu intended it as a lasting token of their encounter. And little did any of them know, this mundane gift would soon become a piece of futuristic defense technology.
But the real emotional consequence of all this comes right after, and it involves Maria.
It does. Jason is just standing there, completely shaken by this ethical compromise he's just made. He saved a life, but he might have just ruined his entire mission. And Maria approaches him.
She doesn't say anything.
She says nothing, but she delivers this secretive guignol wink of thanks.
That one small, silent gesture.
It shatters the explorer's composure. Jason records that he recognizes the gesture instantly. It was an entrañable hábito de su hijo, one of Jesus' own endearing, often secretive habits.
So Maria's intuition is that profound.
It is. She doesn't ask questions, she doesn't demand answers, but she confirms that she sees past his merchant disguise. She knows Jason, the merchant of Thessaloniki, is someone special, someone who doesn't belong, and she accepts him based on his kindness.
How much risk was she taking with that wink? I mean, she was implicitly confirming she knew he wasn't who he claimed to be.
Immense risk, but also immense trust. Her loyalty and her gratitude for his intervention, which, remember, saved a total stranger, reinforcing the very compassion her son taught, it just overrode any suspicion.
And Jason, he just breaks down.
He realizes his cold, scientific facade has completely dissolved. He kneels and kisses her hands, weeping. He writes in his log that the traditional meek, sanitized image of Mary is just utterly inadequate. She was, he writes, better, more human, more brave. This single moment locks his loyalty not to the mission code, but to the people he is observing.
That unexpected medical detour cost them about 2 hours, and Bartolome, who's been walking on these hard Roman roads for hours, is really suffering. He forces the group to stop at the Posada del Tuerto, the Inn of the One-Eyed Man.
Bartolome's physical condition is seriously deteriorating. Jason, with his medical training, notes that he has severe venous varicosis primarias, advanced varicose veins, and these debilitating cramps in his left leg.
Jason checks him out, but since it's a trivial ailment, treating it isn't a code violation. Bartolome just takes care of it himself.
He does. He pulls out his own cure from this translucent green alabaster jar.
And he drinks it.
Drinks the contents with a face of deep repugnance. But the pain relief is necessary. The problem is, the inn itself is a powder keg. There's an ancient, bitter feud between the proprietor and the apostles.
And this feud goes all the way back to the very beginning of Jesus' ministry, right? The famous wine miracle at Cana.
Exactly. February 26th AD, it was Jesus' first public miracle, and it immediately gave the disciples this reputation for having magical powers. And Bartolome, full of pride and arrogance, stopped at this very inn shortly afterward and just boasted that the Messiah, the author of the Cana miracle, was nearby.
And the innkeeper, who was a total skeptic, decided to call his bluff in the most humiliating way possible.
The one-eyed man, full of venom, produced a large jar of water and demanded that Bartolome bring his maestro to turn it into wine. And not just any wine, but wine of Hebron quality.
And since Jesus wasn't there to perform on demand,
Bartolome cursed the innkeeper and fled in shame. The resentment has been festering for 4 years. Bartolome had avoided this Cueva de Ladrones, this den of thieves, ever since.
So knowing all this history, Bartolome and Juan immediately start fighting right outside the one place they absolutely shouldn't be. It's an apostolic brawl based on just petty pride.
And it's intense. Bartolome accuses Juan of trying to shame him. Juan, who can't curb his own vanity, challenges him and unleashes these really severe insults. Jason records them.
What were they?
Tapón de odre, stopper of a wineskin, and bola de cebo, a bowl of fat.
Wow. Those were serious, visceral, and degrading insults in that culture.
They were preparing for actual physical violence.
And what's fascinating is Maria's role in all of this. She's the anchor of stability.
She's the only one who maintains any composure. She's indignant at their childish, ridiculous behavior, especially in such a dangerous time. She grabs Juan's sleeve and physically drags him away to look for water. Her courage and common sense just temporarily diffuse this explosion of vanity between the two men.
But the chaos isn't over. While they're trying to rest, a Roman patrol, a terma of about 30 soldiers, enters the inn.
And they're looking for an executed thief. This immediately raises the tension to an unbearable level. Finding disciples of Jesus in a den of thieves during a Roman search for a fugitive is, it's the definition of peril.
Maria, though, she shows pure caritas, pure charity.
She sees the executed man's body near the courtyard well, and she takes a mat and just covers the corpse out of pity.
And that simple human gesture meant to show respect is what sets off the next explosion.
One of the inn's workers, a prostitute, calls Maria a hypocrite, criticizing her for a lack of charity. Maria, who is not known for backing down, fires back, and a generalized, chaotic fight just erupts between the disciples, Maria, the inn patrons, and probably the edges of the Roman patrol.
And Jason, he gets cornered and assaulted by angry patrons who think he's part of the trouble. He has to break his intervention code again, this time for self-preservation and the safety of his companions.
He suffers a brutal beating. He only survives because he's wearing this concealed, advanced protective suit, the piel de serpiente, the snakeskin. He's thrown across the floor, and he needs a non-lethal definitive action that will let them flee cleanly.
And this is where the Shigamarashu's gift comes into play.
The jar of crude oil.
The acier de piedra.
Jason quickly dumps it all onto the floor. Then he activates the Vara de Moses staff. This thing looks like a simple walking stick, but it's packed with multifunctional tech, including a short-burst gas laser. He targets the crude oil with the laser.
And it ignites instantly, creating a spectacular, immediate curtain of fire and smoke.
It's the perfect high-tech cover. The explosion of light and smoke terrifies the innkeeper and the patrons. They immediately flee, convinced they've just witnessed a celestial sign or cholera divina, divine wrath.
So he used technology specifically engineered to mimic the supernatural in 30 AD.
And in doing so, he prevents both the death of his companions and the exposure of his true identity. He does note in his log that he suffered generalized pain for hours from the beating, confirming that even high-tech protection has its limits against raw, brute force violence.
Having escaped the inn, they're now on the final stretch of their journey, heading toward Cana, which is Bartolome's hometown. It's around 4 p.m. on April 24th, and it seems like the high tension is finally breaking for a moment of just joyful exuberance.
Bartolome is completely overwhelmed. Cana is just 2 kilometers away. He stops, he raises his arms, and he quotes from Proverbs. Las puertas se revuelven en sus quicios. He's just declaring his unrestrained love for his city.
And the explorer gives us this very detailed, unromanticized visual of Bartolome in this moment.
He does. We see the reality of his life. Short, stocky, muscular limbs, and a smile that is, quote, "enturba de una dentadura negra y ulcerada."
His smile was clouded by black and ulcerated teeth.
It's an essential grounding detail. This is not a man of pristine health and luxury. He's a rugged Galilean, worn down by labor and his diet. And while Bartolome is basking in this moment, Maria spots something in the adjacent wheat field.
Wildflowers, the symbolic Lilium candidum, the white lily, anemones, and ranunculus.
And these flowers were considered a presagio y símbolo de la buena suerte, an omen and symbol of good fortune. They were often referenced by Jesus, so Maria kneels down to gather them.
And Bartolome, swept up by the romanticism and joy of being near home, races into the field to gather flowers for her.
He discards his outer garment and just runs in. And that moment of joyful abandon is precisely when tragedy strikes.
He's bitten.
He's bitten by a highly venomous viper, Cerastes, or horned viper. Bartolome cries out, drops the flowers, and manages instinctively to strike the snake with his sword and split it in two.
Jason, the doctor, immediately assesses the situation, and the symptoms are rapid and severe.
Within minutes, Bartolome collapses. He's sweating profusely in intense pain, nausea setting in. The edema spreads so fast that his hand swells by 15 centimeters. Jason checks the vitals, pulse is strong, pupils are fine, but he recognizes the immense danger.
What kind of venom is it?
This venom is cytolytic. It causes rapid destruction of tissue, potential coagulation failure leading to massive internal hemorrhaging, and ultimately cardiac or respiratory failure. He's in deep trouble.
And this is the explorer's deepest ethical tipping point. He's a doctor, he has the cure on him, but he has that ironclad rule: observe, do not intervene.
He's facing this unimaginable internal conflict. His code dictates that saving Bartolome would alter history. It could potentially prevent crucial future events involving the disciple, like his presence at Pentecost. He knows he's risking the life of a friend.
He tries to rationalize it, doesn't he?
He does. He recalls that Bartolome must survive to be present at the Ascension. But that's only a hypothesis he's gleaned from future historical data. He makes what he calls the penosa decision de no actuar, the painful decision not to intervene.
But wasn't that decision inherently a breach of the medical oath, regardless of the mission code? I mean, you can't just stand there and watch a man die when you have the cure in your pocket.
It's the ultimate zero-sum game of time travel. The mission code prioritizes the integrity of the timeline above all individual lives. Jason chose history over humanity. And Juan, who's panicked and desperate, he completely misinterprets Jason's non-action.
He thinks he's given up.
He thinks the explorer has looked at the signs and concluded nothing can be done. So Juan shoves Jason away in this moment of raw anger and despair.
And Maria, once again, is the one who acts decisively.
She ignores the men's panic and just runs ahead toward Canis, shouting for Mayor.
Who is Mayor? The local healer. And the description of his house is highly unusual for a Jew in 30 AD.
Mayor is an auxiliador, an old friend, and a man obsessed with botany and medicine. Jason is shocked by his home, describing it as a laboratorio biblioteca hospital.
A laboratory library hospital.
The yard is dominated by this immense garden dedicated exclusively to roses varieties like Sidonia and Hermon, which he cultivates for medicinal purposes. And more shockingly, Mir keeps 2 human skulls and other bones inside for anatomical study. This was an absolute sacrilege in Judaism at the time, and it just underscores his pure commitment to science over religious law.
And Mayor immediately identifies the viper.
Right away, he identifies the Cerastes, and in this strange twist of ancient medical lore, he laments its destruction. He tells them that the cooked viper is an excellent antidote against leprosy. This detail shows the fascinating mix of precise knowledge and just bizarre folklore that defined ancient medical practice.
And what's the ultimate twist that justifies Jason's painful non-intervention?
Bartolome recovers. Completely. Miraculously. Just 14 hours later, by the morning of April 25th, he's back to his usual self, the jokester, the dreamer. He was apparently saved by his body's own resistance or local providence or, as Jason had speculated, the inevitable flow of history. The crisis passes. confirming to Jason that his agonizing choice, however cruel, had been the correct move to preserve the timeline.
So by the morning of April 25th, they finally arrive in Nazareth, the childhood home of Jesus. What's a first impression that Jason records?
He corrects the later image of Nazareth as some desolate, tiny village. Jason actually describes it as a white flower among the hills, cradled in this fertile landscape, surrounded by dense gardens, olive groves, and vineyards. It was a place of relative prosperity and natural beauty.
And Juan Zebedeo, fresh off this near-death experience with Bartolome, immediately climbs up to the flat roof of Maria's house and just starts preaching about the resurrection. He is full of fervor.
He is, but the reaction from the older, local residents is, well, it's skepticism, not awe. They knew Jesus when he was a carpenter, a debt-ridden teenager, and they're struggling to accept these grand claims of resurrection. Juan's sermon is met with deep suspicion.
And that suspicion soon finds a highly dangerous focal point.
It does. Enter the primary antagonist of this entire deep dive, Ismail, the Sadducee.
This man is a piece of work.
Ismail is a high-ranking, physically scarred Sadducee who had actually been Jesus' former teacher. Jason, the doctor, instantly diagnoses him as severely cirrhotic based on clear physical symptoms. Gynecomastia, abnormal breast volume, severe muscle wasting, ascites fluid accumulation, and these characteristic vascular spider nevi on his cheeks and hands.
So a man consumed by anger and probably alcohol.
That's the medical implication. And this man carries an ocean of hatred for Jesus and his entire family, dating back years.
Why such intense personal venom?
Well, it wasn't just theological disagreement. Jesus had defied him publicly years ago, putting him in an impossible position in the school. But the deepest source of his hatred, both political and financial, was Jesus' public criticism of the Sadducees for corrupting the temple, for making it a latrocínio, a place of robbery and graft.
So he leads a hostile crowd.
He does. He accuses Jesus of being an egolatra, an egotist, a blasphemo, and a failed prophet.
And he uses scripture against the family, specifically quoting Isaiah to condemn them.
He quotes Isaiah 59.5 to suggest the family are all serpents and vipers, implying that Jesus' supposed miracles and teachings are just venomous lies. He also publicly denies the Cana miracle, claiming Jesus only performed wonders in front of his friends, but ran away when challenged to do a miracle in Nazareth where everybody knew him.
The confrontation escalates immediately.
The crowd, whipped into a frenzy by Ismail's venom, turns violent. Santiago and Jacobo, Jesus' half-brothers, step in to defend Juan and their family's honor, but the crowd begins stoning them, shouting, "Muerte, death."
And Jason has to intervene yet again. But this time, he's not saving an apostle from a snake. He's saving future historical witnesses, Santiago and Jacobo, from a fatal mob attack.
And he has to do it with overwhelming, non-lethal force. He uses the Var de Moisés again. This time, he targets Ismail with a directed burst of ultrasound, specifically 21,000 hertz.
So what happens when you hit a person's vestibular system with that frequency?
Instant, catastrophic loss of balance. The sound waves disrupt the inner ear fluids that govern your equilibrium. Ismail just falls redondo, collapsing instantly. Jason fires a second infrared burst at another accomplice, who also collapses.
And the crowd, seeing two people drop instantly without any visible cause, interprets this sci-fi attack as perfect, immediate divine wrath.
They turn their faces to the sky in panic, convinced it was cholera divina, a physical manifestation of God's anger in response to Juan's reckless sermon. The explorer's ability to mimic the supernatural allows the family to scatter and prevents a fatal stoning.
This violence forces the family to reflect on their deepest trauma, and this is where we finally get these profound insights into Jesus's hidden years, the stuff later traditions just skimmed over.
Maria and the brothers reveal this devastating history after the death of Joseph. Joseph, who was a contractor, a contratista de obras, he died when Jesus was only 14 years old. And this wasn't a peaceful passing. It was an economic catastrophe that immediately plunged the family of 10 into deep poverty and debt.
And the weight of supporting the entire family fell onto the young Jesus' shoulders.
Absolutely. From the age of 15 to 17, Jesus worked relentlessly in the carpentry workshop. Jason calls it the sucio cuartucho, the dirty shack, which Maria keeps untouched even now, honoring his sacrifice. His pay was less than 24 asses a day.
Which was basically starvation wages for a man supporting 9 other people.
It was. It got so desperate that Maria had to sell off her most cherished possessions.
Those doves.
She sold her beloved doves, which is how she earned the nickname La de las Palomas, the one with the doves. The family's immediate salvation came from Jesus' entrepreneurial shift. He bought a cow and set up a small dairy operation, having his sister Miriam sell the milk. He had to become a full-time provider and entrepreneur just to keep them alive.
And his attempt to establish a secure future as a farmer was brutally crushed by political corruption.
Jesus secured a plot of land and was genuinely enthusiastic about farming. He intended to secure the family's future permanently, but the plans were ruined by Herod Antipas, the local tetrarch. Antipas refused to pay the wages owed to the late Joseph for past contract work. And when Jesus and the family traveled to Sepphoris to appeal, Antipas's cynical reply was, "Que venga el muerto y que reclame."
Let the dead man come and claim his wages.
That single act of gross injustice and political cruelty crushed Jesus' hope for a simple, stable life. It confirmed to him that his human efforts to secure his family were futile in a corrupt world.
This is a profound revelation. It wasn't just a convenient gap in the history books. Jesus spent over 12 years sacrificing his divine calling and delaying his ministry simply to fulfill his human obligations and ensure his mother and siblings were safe.
He only launched his true mission once he had strategically transferred enough responsibility to his older brother, Santiago.
The day ends with high drama, and immediately after the stoning event, the group suffers this massive internal betrayal. Juan Zebedeo, who had been hiding in Santiago's house, vanishes entirely.
And he leaves behind this scorching note on a shard of pottery, an ostraca.
The note is direct, and it's filled with paranoia. It accuses the explorer, Jason, of being a traitor, and, crucially, it reveals that Jason possesses a safe conduct pass from Pontius Pilate.
That's the smoking gun for Juan.
So how did Juan even know about that pass, and why was it such a damning piece of evidence for him?
Jason reveals he acquired the pass back in Jerusalem through Joseph of Arimathea, a wealthy, respected member of the Sanhedrin. For Juan, who was steeped in anti-Roman sentiment and just wary of any rich or politically connected individuals, finding out Jason had safe passage from Pilate himself.
The man who crucified Jesus.
The man who crucified Jesus. It was irrefutable proof of Roman espionage. Juan's paranoia, which was fueled by trauma and the tension of the times, it just reached its breaking point. He fled Nazareth entirely, fearing Jason was planning to betray them all.
Santiago and Jacobo are alarmed. They organize a frantic search, believing that Ismael's agents have murdered Juan.
And while that search is underway, Maria and Jacobo have this deep discussion about a historical decision Jesus made years earlier, at age 16, his refusal to lead the Zealot movement.
This was a genuine option for him, right? An opportunity for political revolution. So why did he refuse?
Jesus, ever the diplomat and strategist, used his family commitment, the poverty, the debt, the need to support his mother, as the official, perfect excuse to decline the Zealots' offer. It was a socially acceptable refusal because family duty was sacred.
But the hidden agenda was much grander.
His true mission was not political violence. He was preserving his time for the true spiritual mission. Jason's analysis confirms that Jesus' later career changes, carpenter, foreman, stoneworker, forger in Sepphoris, were all part of a calculated multi-year plan to gain maximum experience, build enough capital, and slowly relinquish financial responsibility to Santiago before he began his ministry. His entire young adulthood was a supreme act of patient self-control.
Now for the true catastrophe of the story, the loss of the mission data itself. On Wednesday, April 26th, the explorer's mission is fundamentally jeopardized by a simple accident.
While they're out searching for Juan, Jason and Santiago try to cross this rustic, rotten wooden bridge over a small river. The bridge just gives way under Jason's weight.
His leg goes through.
His left leg plunges into the water, and in the confusion, the sack containing his backup electronic sandals, and critically, the minusculo disco magnetico.
The high-capacity hard drive, the raw magnetic log of all his observations.
It's swept away by the swift current.
All that data, the appearances, the intimate conversations, the dynamics, the raw, unedited history of the past few weeks, gone forever.
The loss is just incalculable. It confirms the extreme precariousness of this whole operation. The only piece of equipment Jason manages to save is the Vara de Moisés. The historical record is suddenly reduced to only what he has written in his manual paper diary up to this point.
As the day draws to a tragic close, news arrives of an imminent execution nearby. The group rushes there, terrified it's Juan Zebedeo, caught by Ismael's agents or the Romans.
Thankfully, it is not Juan Zebedeo. It's Juan Hijo de Eliezer, condemned for the capital crime of incest sexual union with his daughter and granddaughter. The scene is gathered by 150 people despite the torrential rain.
The details of this execution are just horrific. They reveal the raw, barbaric nature of justice in 30 AD.
The method used is strangulation, or scylla. Two men pull cloths tied around the neck of the condemned man. Simultaneously, an acolyte attempts to push a burning wick down his throat,
To cauterize the vitals.
ensuring both death and a kind of purification of the body through fire. The crowd screams hysterically in vengeance. This violence just underscores the brutal reality of the world the disciples inhabited, a world so far removed from pastoral peace.
Shaken by this scene, Jason returns to his lodging at the Posada del Rana, and his room has been ransacked by Ismael's agents.
The betrayal is now complete. Heket, the innkeeper, El Rana, and his servant David have been bribed or coerced by Ismael. And based on the unusual objects found in the ransacking, the Sadducee sets his trap.
And this is the final desperate trap that ends the diary log.
Ismael orders the innkeeper and the servant to trap Jason by rolling a heavy millstone and wheel over the entrance to a dark chamber near the stables. The terrified servant David falls into the trap with the explorer. The explorer's diary ends right there, April 26th.
And what are the final chilling words recorded as the explorer realizes his mission and his life is ending?
Trapped with the terrified servant David, Jason records Ismael's sinister laughter coming from the other side of the heavy stone, the final horrifying entry. Enterrados vivos.
Buried alive. Wow. And that's where the primary source material just abruptly cuts off. Hashtag outro. What an intense journey. I mean, in just 48 hours, we witnessed the complete breakdown of a high-tech observation mission, all because the emotional resilience of the observer just could not withstand the profound human loyalty and tragedy he was seeing.
This diary, even though it's truncated and ends in terror, it provided such critical, unfiltered knowledge. We gained these deep insights into the grinding poverty and economic sacrifice of Jesus' hidden years, the profound complexity of Mary's character.
And the raw, unpolished, often argumentative nature of the men who would eventually found the church.
Exactly. We see that the political violence and the suspicion of 30 AD weren't just incidental, they were constants. They were the air they breathed.
And the greatest revelation for me is the immense sacrifice made by Jesus. He delayed his divine calling for over a decade, navigating treacherous politics and deep poverty just to ensure his human family was financially secure. He was the ultimate patient strategist.
He was. And the explorer's forced interventions, whether he was using technology to mimic divine wrath or making that agonizing decision not to save Bartholomew, they show the impossible ethical quandaries of engaging with history directly. His mission, though it ended tragically, it provides this unique glimpse into a reality that is so far removed from any of the later traditions.
So here is the final thought for you to mull over. What crucial, unrecoverable detail about the true nature of the resurrection appearances was lost forever when that magnetic log disc sank into the riverbed? And what became of Juan Zebedeo, who fled Nazareth believing his friend was a traitor? The final answer to the fate of the Greek and the subsequent life of Juan remains locked on the other side of that millstone, a historical mystery sealed by a Sadducee's revenge. We'll catch you next time for the next deep dive.